Hi, Katarina. I'm really glad that I got you on the podcast. Begin with, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. My name is Katarina Cepinova. I am an international indoor volleyball referee for England, and I'm really great to kind of be able to come in and talk to you about my career, my life, and any sort of information and tips that might be useful for other people as well.
That's amazing. I think you're a bit humble there. I believe you're the first female volleyball referee for international federation.
Yes, I am actually. Very kind of you to point it out. Yes, I am the first female England indoor volleyball referee in history. It's a really good achievement, I believe, but it's an amazing privilege as well to have been able to get that far. So I'm really, really happy that I was able to do that. And there's going to be many more to come.
Hopefully. So, are you currently still the only one?
Yes, as we speak, currently I'm still the only female international indoor volleyball referee for England. We do have my other male colleagues counterparts, but I am the only female one. Yes, we do have colleagues in indoor refereeing, which are both sexes, but none of them are international in terms of women. But we do have, and we've had other international referees in sitting volleyball and in beach volleyball, which are slightly different angles to the volleyball as well.
So, what has it been like being the only being the first and only female referee for England?
It was actually a very interesting journey over the years. I've qualified as an international referee in 2016 when I started to go on my international course, and then after I've completed the course and some training, then after to be fully fledged international referee. And since then, it's been slightly different story. But I think previous to that, it was a little bit lonely. I'll be honest with you. There weren't that many women and female referees in general in our sport, which is quite male dominated. It's just a type of a sport that it's got predominance in more in men refereeing than female. So it was a little bit lonely at the time. And I actually started refereeing in 2008. So it took me 8 years of a path before I became an international referee. And on that 8 years, I have met some women referees, but not as many. But I think this whole area is changing a little bit. The whole scene of volleyball and refereeing is changing, which is great to see the landscape developing as well in that arena.
Yeah, for sure. So, what is it like in the international scene then?
You might say that it follows a little bit of a similarity of trajectory, because in the last sort of many years, I would say, in the sport, where still predominancy of men and male refereeing proportionately to female refereeing. And you might find that about 80-85% are still men to this current day. So it's quite a high number, even on the international scene. But again, I believe that there's been a lot more development within that area and a lot more female supported pathways that's been developed over the last, I would say, 20 years. And we have seen this growth amongst us international referees when we meet up on different appointments and different games. We do see a lot more of international female referees from different countries coming through. And this is a lovely thing to see because we want to see a development of both sexes in all sports, as you know, in your sport as well. It's not always possible, but it's great to see that development. Over the years and my career in volleyball, the one thing I remember from early start, it's been said to me by a number of my mentors, you're as good as your performance, and you should be there on merit, not on the type of person and sex that you are. It's more about who you are as a referee as well. So in that sense, I would say it's a great to see the development pathway for both within England and within the UK, because there are referees as well within other countries within the GB, but also internationally as well. So you do see that pathways growing even more so. From experience, it's actually quite lovely to see when I went to my course which happened in 2016 in Argentina. There were about 6 or 7 first-time female international referees from South American countries, so Colombia, Uruguay, countries that are quite unusual, but they also had the first time ever female referees being appointed as international on the course. So that was fantastic to see as well, and meet like-minded fellow referees as well from different countries. So yeah. This is kind of a nice story to tell as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think in most of sports, gender equality definitely has improved a great deal. But on the official side, that is still a big difference, isn't it? So, yeah, but it's good to hear that for volleyball, that is really improving, really progressing. So let's kind of bring back to the beginning. So, how did you get into volleyball? What happened? And, your sort of whole journey up to now.
I think it always starts with a passion for sport, whatever that sport is, whether it's volleyball or for yourself, it might be boxing, or for others, might be many other sports. And it could be involvement in different ways and capacities. For me, it was being involved as a junior player and then working my way up the ranking and the league tables to go to a sort of more a senior levels and sort of a national level in terms of playing. And I've played since I was about 6 years old at school. So for me, it was a natural progression. And I originate from Slovakia. So it's a part of a quite a big national sport, volleyball, as many of the game sports that are team sports are quite evolved in Eastern European countries and Central European countries. So it's very much supported and sponsored. So therefore, the passion has been installed from very, very young age. So when I got to UK in 1995, quite a long time ago, over 30 years ago, I continued as a senior player, and that passion has stayed with me for many years. And I competed within a volleyball sort of leagues in England up to sort of my mid-30s when I felt that everything started to ache and you decide whether you want to continue on a high competitive level. But it does instill a lot of things in you that you want to continue in sport in potential capacity, and whether you go coaching or whether you go refereeing or you're finding a different path of development then after. For me, it was more natural progression from a player then after to a refereeing because I wanted to enjoy the game and I wanted to be at that top level for a little bit longer in a different way that I could still enjoy being part of. So for me, that was more natural progression than to go to refereeing in 2008 when I qualified as a junior referee, and then working my way up all the way to a national referee, and then become a sort of the one to be sent out as a representative of England to go to an international course and then after the international matches. So it was a more of a trajectory over the period of time. But it has started from playing, then to upgrade to refereeing, and then refereeing for 8 years before becoming international, and now refereeing for 10 years internationally. So that trajectory has been quite progressive through my life, but now I still remain devoted to and passionate about sport because it's still something that it's been instilled for a very long time.
That's incredible. I think like in any kind of sport, like the progression, say your refereeing journey, 8 years to go into international, that's quite a short period of time. So that is a huge kind of jump, isn't it?
It is, and it takes a lot of things to align, I must say. Yes, of course, skill set and development, because you have to devote a lot of time and effort and hours to fine tune your performance, but also have in line a lot of sort of support, and that support network is extremely important because that pushes you further in that path, maybe a little bit quicker. So having the right people around you who give you support in terms of mentorship or direction or further guidance and development is important, alongside your own passion and your own sort of time to develop these things. Because if you're not interested in taking on feedback and questioning things and progress things, then of course it's going to be to a certain level you can progress, but you do want you need the need or the wantness to, if there's such a word, to actually progress. So there is a mixture of passion and knowledge, of course, skill set, but also the support network around you. But you're right, 8 years is actually quite a short time. Some people referee for 20, 30 years and they never get to be international. So I guess for me, there was a really good mix of things that happened along the path that created that possibility and then a reality.
So you said that obviously for you, it was a natural progression from a player to go into refereeing. Why not coaching? Did you consider?
That's a really interesting question, actually. And I'm not sure. Maybe it was just something that I wanted to experience in a different way. Maybe it just wasn't the right thing for me to do coaching. As much as I do coaching in my professional life and I do a
Yeah.
lot of training and mentoring in professional life. But I just somehow never gravitated to coaching as much as I have done to refereeing because of the personality also, that I am very strong personality in terms of making decisions and being clear, and years of working as a public speaker and a teacher, and it's more, I think, with a link of personality as well. So for me, it felt a little bit more natural to go to refereeing and officiating than it would have been to coaching. But I do know a lot of colleagues of mine who are referees and coaches and players. It's quite natural for a lot of people to go into a variety of roles and find their niche or find their passions that they want to follow. But after a while, you have to almost decide, because when it came to the crossroads, when I was deciding whether to stay still as a player, it was a little bit difficult because you've got a lot of time that you have to devote around the similar times as you would do as a player. So you've got to make a choice. Perhaps if you're really serious about refereeing or coaching, you may need to devote a little bit more time to it. And it's very difficult when you're trying to split your time across. So now I just would play socially as opposed to competitively because of the time and the hours it needs to devote to it to develop further. So therefore, my path's gone down towards the refereeing side more than coaching.
Wow. I believe that you mentioned before that volleyball in England is still amateur level. So I assume that the coaches and the officials would be on a volunteering basis. Is that correct?
It's a fair assumption because, yes, you're correct. The sport is still more on the amateur side. Of course, there might be sort of handful of clubs or handful of players that will receive some financial reward for the playing or coaching, but predominancy is still an amateur sport comparatively to Eastern and Central Europe, which is automatically very much of a professional sport, very much backed by quite a bit of sponsorship. And so is countries that are very, very sort of known for volleyball, like, Italy, France, and all these even other international countries. So there is a lot more sponsorship. But nowadays you'll find there is a lot more sponsorship for the teams to enter the different leagues, and for finances from different ways to support the growth of players and coaches, and to a degree some of the referees as well, but it's still predominantly amateur sport. So we do it more out of passion than we can actually earn living out of it. And this is why I said earlier it's very important to be interested in the game and wanting to do it, because it's predominantly from that we gain that happiness and enjoyment as opposed to the financial reward.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's developing as we're getting more and more into it. But you also have to be realistic that sports that get the biggest coverage on Olympics, the sports that are, bringing the medals to the country, the sports that are predominantly featured, whether it's World Cup or similar sports that showcase a lot more English involvement, tends to get a more allocation of financial support and sponsorships. So I think it kind of goes with that ranking as well. And the more visibility we can create for sport, I think there's more opportunities for attracting sponsorship. So I know Volleyball England is working extremely hard to secure more and more visibility and sponsorship for Volleyball England, because that enables the sports to grow, but also to create more pathways for development for both coaches, players, and the referees as well.
Yeah. Like you said, like you had to dedicate so much time. If you're at national level, you travel as well. Like, well, obviously you're international level. So it's the travel, and it's, being in the tournament, and sometimes it's a full day of work. And I mean, it is physically and mentally tiring as well, isn't it? Like when you go for it.
It is, yeah. And especially because when you have to make decisions, it is you require a lot of concentration. And those are split over second decisions. We all love VAR in different sports because it's something we would love to have, yeah, as and being able to look back on the situation and make maybe a different decision. But as a human being, you have to make the decision very, very quickly. And as you know yourself, there's only one chance that you can make that decision. And that is very draining if that game is going for 2 hours or longer, because you have to sustain that sort of a commitment to making sure that you make those decisions as to the best of the knowledge that you can and to fairness. And if you're doing more than one game and you're having, say, you are at a tournament and these are maybe back-to-back games, this can be also very tiresome because it's very draining on physical and mental capacity. Of course, you want to train yourself to prepare yourself, and I'm sure that we'll talk about that. It's more about being able to consistently perform and being able to deliver the best that you can. And yes, it takes a toll, physically and mentally. But you start to build the stamina and you start to build the preparations for that, like the athletes do. Again, whether we're athletes, whether we're coaches, or whether we are referees or officials, we still have a lot to prepare the same way to make that sport as enjoyable to everybody else. So it's you put so much to it, as much as maybe training physically or mentally. But yes, it can be quite draining and it can be quite full on. But you'll find that if you love the sport, like you also love the sport that you're involved in, you will overcome the challenges. But we also have a very strong network of volunteers who love the game and who are involved in the game. And it is like one big family because we're all passionate about growing the sport and projecting the sports to those that have not experienced it to enable them to try it out. And I'm sure that it's across any sports. And I'm really actually pleased that football is kind of leading that way a little bit more because they've got more financial backing. There's a lot more media and PR and sponsorship. But it showcases that if you have that and if you've got the exposure, you are able to achieve the bigger and greater following of female, even just to the sport, to follow, to kind of try it, to enjoy it, to give it a go. And that should really happen in every sport, whether it is a football or not. It's more about bringing that sport to more wider audience to try it.
Yeah, I agree. So how do you prepare then? How do you prepare for a championships or going into a match? And all these years, I'm sure there are loads of lessons learned. And so could you share with us like what you have learned?
Yeah, well, there is obviously a physical and mental preparation. We've got to be physically fit to be able to conduct the refereeing, because there's strongly links to your mental performance as well. So being physically fit is very, very important. And in my sort of professional world, I'm a nutritionist, so I work with day to day with food and fitness. So for me, it's also very important to not only to kind of work with others to tell them about these things, but also to make sure that I deliver that and I lead by example. So for me, the diet and nutrition is hugely important in making sure that that physical part is sort of nurtured through diet, but also through the physical output. So yes, we have to keep fit. I mean, we don't get to run around like football or other sports, but we still have to remain very agile to be able to conduct the game. So for me, it's more of a staying fit and staying healthy. It's a very big preparation for that. And annually, we get to do the medical checks as well. So internationally, we have to also conform to certain standards of health and vitality, of course. We do perform various stress tests under sort of EKG environments to make sure that our heart is healthy, that we can sustain the stress levels and we can positively, output during the games, especially if you have a huge audience of people around you. It can be quite draining and the environment could be draining and temperatures might be different, etc. And then, of course, the mental preparation comes to that as well, because that is quite crucial to maintain that consistency, and the concentration levels are really important to kind of stay focused. Now, I can't really compare it to every sport, but there is a length of time that you need to stay focused for, and each sport will have a slightly different length depending on the length of the matches or sort of a stages within that. And in volleyball, you're talking around anything between 1 to 2 hours of solid concentration, where a game is very, very fast, and it's for you as a person to decide, as I mentioned earlier, at a very, very, very short space of time and make an outcome that may affect the game. So for us, it's very important to stay at the peak of that mental capacity to be able to be judging those calls and those decisions very, very quickly. But you're not the only person on the field. There are other people that we need to be aware of. So our game management is also around supporting other referees that are supporting referees to you, the players, the coaches, the other extra players that are not involved in the game. So there is a lot to manage during the game. And that requires a kind of almost like a full picture approach. And that takes a lot of mental energy. So for us to prepare is really to go with a calm mind and that mental preparation before the game. And you're smiling because you probably recognize some of the very common sort of crossovers between different sports and preparation. So the mental preparation is as important as the physical one. And for me personally, I like to make sure that I kind of get into the zone before the game, that I'm not affected by any external things, that I'm calm and collected before I go onto the field, and that I get on the court, I should say, in our case, to make sure that, that I'm not really influencing the game with my emotions that may have been influenced by some things that's going on outside or anything else that might impact on my performance. So that's really important. And of course, we shouldn't forget the rules, making sure that we're up to date with the rules. Like with any sport, you've got to understand what are you actually doing. So the preparation also extends on education and making sure that that professional qualification gets renewed, that you're still on top of the game and understanding how you're applying your decisions and what you're doing with them during the game. So it's a mixture. It's a very strong mixture, but I'm sure that applies to most of the sports, and it's just something that keeps us on our toe.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, thank you so much. I think you go into really good details about how a referee or an official prepares for their game and to be top of their games as well. And I think it's something that spectators don't really see it that much because obviously they focus on the athletes, and which is fair. I really liked, you mentioned obviously your professional side of things like the nutrition and diet's really important, and physical fitness really feeds into our mental fitness as well, right? Like how you make that decision, how do you stay sharp and calm under pressure when there are loads of like things happening around you. Yeah.
That can include hydration as well. It's simple things like that that can actually slow your performance down, not just as an athlete, but also as a referee. Because if you're not hydrated, your cognitive abilities and your decision making may be slowed down, or even your body temperature. People don't think about that, how that influences circulation and how that can actually impact on your brain capacity and what your brain output is. What you've had before the game, is it going to sort of help you or slow you down in terms of food, for example? The amount of salt you have before the game, because that can make you extremely thirsty perhaps, and change how your blood pressure is and change how you again behave through the game. The calmness of it. Did you sleep the night before? Because that may have an input on, how you feel that day, whether you feel sharp, as you mentioned earlier, or whether you feel slowed down. These are just the small things that maybe the spectators don't think about it, that one person has to prepare for the game. But these are all parts that fit into this one big puzzle of preparation. And yes, we may be not running around the court, but we're still doing it in terms of a mental capacity, because player can take a break. They can go and sit on the bench for volleyball, or they can sort of be substituted and go into the warm-up area and stay sort of warm and relax a little bit in between the points, for example, as well. And we do so to a little less degree, but we still have to be aware of what's going on around us. So it's not just always everything that's going on in front of us, it's being aware of everything else. So even when there is a gap in play, we're still checking subconsciously different things that people may be not aware of when there is, break between the sets or break between the points. You're kind of doing your checklist list in your head to know that everything is where it should be, everything is in its place. And that requires smoothness, that requires a focus for exactly for that reason, like you mentioned, that people who are coming to watch are coming to watch the athletes and want to see the sport. They don't want to see the nitty-gritty around it. And that's how it should be, right? For us to make sure that the focus isn't on us, it makes it smooth and easy for the game to be facilitated. Because at the end of the day, the officials should be facilitators of the game. They're not there to police anybody. They're not there to find the faults. It's more about, is the game flowing? Is the game, adapted to the level that the sport requires to, influence the effects of the rules in there, or other aspects that need to be considered. But it's about the flow of the game at the end of the day. Otherwise, everybody could do everything. The whole point is to structure it somehow, right? We're putting boundaries to it a little bit more, and we're almost like the gatekeepers to the boundaries. And that's what we're trying to do, to make sure that the sport is enjoyable to watch.
100%. I really love that. And it's really interesting because with so many other referees that I've spoken with, this is one thing that kind of like reoccurring quite often. The fact that we're not there for us. right? We're there to facilitate the game, the match, the contest. But a lot of times, I think teams, like team players or coaches or spectators, if a decision is against their team, they kind of feel like you're there to be against them or something. And then you're just kind of like, well, no,
But that's natural because that's emotions. There is always going to be one team or a person, if it's a different type of sport, that is going to win, and there's going to be another side that is going to lose. So there has to be an outcome. There's never going to be everybody happy, unfortunately, because that's the nature of sport. I think where we can make a difference is that we've facilitated the game to an extent that everybody enjoyed to watch it. It was a spectacle to watch. And if you kind of, if you go home and you felt that you've had a really enjoyable game, not just as a professional, but also as a spectator, you go, well, I haven't actually noticed the referees, or I've not noticed that the peripheral things, I've noticed the game only. And that was the enjoyable bit. And this is why, at least myself, I try to stay out of the focus, because it's about the athlete, it's about the sport, it's about the game. And yes, there will be decisions you have to make because they are 50-50. But at the end of the day, if you make them fairly and consistently, I think the performance will speak in itself, really, of the team or the players or person who's making those mistakes or not, right? And that will come through. And often or not, you speak to spectators or people after the game and they say, actually, it was fairly won by one team or another, because they've had a better, attack or better defense or whatever there was. And that's the outcome that you want. That's precisely the reason why we're doing it, not because we want to influence the game. But it's very hard from a non-professional sort of referee point of view that somebody would know exactly all the rules. I mean, we get lots of comments after the game all the time. People say, well, why did you do this like this? Or I'm not sure about this, but that's all the knowledge about the rules, about what you can and can't whistle and what you can and can't, let go. It's all these nitty-gritties. And the other aspect to consider is that we see the bigger picture. We see all the other parts that are part of the game. We don't see just isolated incident. There could be a situation where something is escalating behavior, or might be the need for sanctions. And it can happen in the match, but we don't necessarily do it just ad hoc. We see the development and management of the game. And if that gets to that point that the sanctions are necessary to ensure that the flow of the game is not completely disrupted, then we may have to get to that point. But often spectators might just see that as one incident and make a judgment again from outset. So sometimes it's all about seeing the whole game as well, rather than just seeing parts. And you will be influenced if you're sitting on one side or the other.
Oh, that's really interesting. So what is the volleyball spectators? What are they like?
What are they like? Well, they're also passionate, because most of the time that we have, it's either other players or they're people that used to play, or they play, their family member is playing. So they would love the sport and they are passionate. So the emotion will run as much on court as much as off court. And some of the teams will bring lots of drums and lots of musical instruments and
Wow, really?
Mexican waves. It's everything is possible on a national level, and on an international level everything is possible. I have seen people coming with flags and flashlights and taking their shirts off, all sorts of things. So it depends, the type of audience as well. I mean, I think my most memorable games that were really action-packed were probably, overseeing Greek teams. The Greek teams are extremely passionate. They come with a huge, crowds and huge, sort of props and lots of noise and lots of singing. And so it depends which country you're in, what their natural sort of things are that they do. But yeah, it can vary from one thing to another. When was it? About 7-8 years ago, I was at a match in France and they did an amazing show. They did a light show, they did a dance in the middle of the court during the breaks. It was a whole spectacle. It was a whole evening performance. And again, spectators absolutely loved it because it was a show. It wasn't just about coming and watching the game. It was almost an entertainment for the evening. So you do see some amazing, participants that people come and watch the sport with, the shakes, the hands, the plastic hands, and all sorts of things that you see. So yeah, it's actually extremely amazing to watch it from country to country as well, as much as in the UK as well.
No, that's great. Because obviously being a female referee is really rare. So how do they perceive a female referee on the court, the spectators wise? I mean. And even coaches, actually, coaches, players.
That's actually a question I get asked quite a lot,
Yeah.
because this is the question that gets raised a lot between young and up and coming referees as well by, other people involved in sport. This is quite a common question. It all goes down to the performance. It all goes down to, to growth and potential of that person. So the more they are delivering the outcomes, the more they are kind of performing on the field consistently, the higher the respect is, of course. And that may change the behavior of people. You may say that it's good or bad, but it's you earning the respect as well. So as you go through the stages of your career, there may be a different approaches through that period of time. So maybe when you're up and coming referee, and whether you're female or male, you may get a different response from people as when you start to build that respect and you get to that certain level. I guess at least in volleyball, we try to sort of work with referees at different levels that referee at different levels of matches as well. So then it creates that better balance between communication amongst the teams and spectators and the referees, because it would be very much unfair to put a sort of up and coming referee, maybe who junior referee, to extremely difficult senior match. So you also try to consider these aspects. But I remember when I started, yes, I was scared. Of course I was scared. I was a young referee, not proven myself at that point. And perhaps at that time it wasn't so obvious that it would be female referee on a male match. And yes, it would be boundary pushed. It's a natural process that players would push the boundaries of the female referees, because we are a little bit more emotional. We are a little bit more maybe sensitive, I could say that. That may be more considerate, perhaps, than maybe our male counterparts. And maybe some spectators or some coaches may want to utilize that to the advantage of the team. But as you go through your career and you learn how to manage the game and how to install bigger and bigger confidence in your performance, your relationship with the crowd or your relationship with the coaches will naturally progress as well and changes. And that can influence how you handle situations as well. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, totally. So do you have a style?
Do I have a style? In refereeing, do I have a style? That's a good question. I think that's probably a question for those that look at me, I guess.
So, yes.
I think I try to be fair, like you would expect every referee to be fair. I think I'm always, I don't overthink it. I try to think that, okay, if you come with a question, I will hear you. But if it's unreasonable question, then that's not going to be sustained. But I also try to be very clear in my communication. I think this comes from my job as well, and my role every day is we've got to communicate clearly with all the stakeholders involved in sport, whether they are athletes or whether they are coaches or whether anybody else is involved. If we're not clear, then people cannot follow either instructions or rules if they do not understand things. So clarity of communication is very important to me. Calmness as well, because you've got to be calm under situations. Otherwise, that can spiral out of control and out of hand as well. And always be sort of from a professional sense, always kind of help other people. So it's for us as a referees, it's not just about the performance on the court, it's also the performance out of the court, because the game for us doesn't finish until we sign off the paperwork, until everything is done. So it's also the approachability and being able to handle the situation outside of the court as well. So it's that these little things for me are very important in creating my own personal style and wanting to make sure that the sport and spectacle is observed. So not putting any particular person in the center of attention, really, because it's about the sport.
Oh, that's great.
We have a saying actually in volleyball, let the ball fly, right? Not to kill the game. So for us, it's everything to ensure that the ball flies.
That's nice. I like that. Thank you. So it sounds like you do a lot of mentoring, obviously in your professional side. And I know that you're involved in the project for Volleyball England called HerCall. Would you like to talk about it?
HerCall has been sort of set up as an idea that we had. It's 2 years now, to more or less to the day. When we sort of I was chatting with Volleyball England, and I said, actually, we've got very few female referees being developed. There would be great to have some pathways in place that are a little bit more supportive, and there is a little bit more mentorship coming through, because that's what I felt was lacking when I started. I didn't have enough female mentors that would give me a little bit more of a type of support that I was looking for, which may be sort of more reflected to my own sex as well, rather than just a sort of a generic support. And that idea has really started off the 2 years ago as a small group of people that we got together, and that has actually grown over the last 2 years to a lot bigger numbers of female referees, where we provide a calm and supportive space to be able to discuss anything from the rules, the situations, unusual situations, difficult situations, things that they want, that probably is worthwhile discussing as a group rather than just one-to-one always, because people can learn from. And these scenarios and these experiences actually shape everybody who is getting involved in HerCall. And that enables the young and up and coming and any age, really, female referee to have a place where they can discuss these things and feel supported, but also opportunity to grow individually. And this type of mentorship, and we do have almost like a one-to-one, but also group mentorship within that, enables us to meet on a regular basis, sort of every sort of 4 to 8 weeks, where we have this ongoing connection and ongoing space, enables us to kind of identify pitfalls, identify common things that might be happening, identify the pathways even more clearly to how we can develop things further, but also brainstorm ideas about how to reach out to more potentials and how to bring more female referees into the sport. And that starts all the way from sort of student years and university years, where we have a lot of young people coming to refereeing as well. And we now got to the stage within 2 years that we now have 15 ambassadors. So it's a really lovely growing community that reaches out to all parts of England to deliver what we're set to do, is to give more visibility, more structure, more support and mentoring to female referees in sport. And I'm glad to say it's working.
That's so wonderful. I think like probably all sports would need a supporting network like that.
I think you said it right, actually. It is a great support network. That is actually really well put. It's a nice sort of cohesive way to engage in. Yes. To the extent that actually our colleagues, male colleagues, are saying they would like a HerCall because it's such a popular get together. And now we actually extended it to European similar sort of groups. We actually are interconnecting with the European referees now as well. We now have actually the next connection we have in March is with the Holland female referees. So we have a female international from Holland coming to us, and we're connecting the groups as well, which is lovely to see. So we're now going even internationally, and that just came naturally as the growth progressed over the years as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Comparing to what you had at the time and now having this HerCall support network, what's the difference? Did you wish that you had something like that at the time, or are there some different kind of learning from what you had before? Can you do a bit of comparison for us? Yeah.
Of course, I would wish to have had something like that.
Sorry, that was yeah.
But no, you've got to get through this process to understand it and to appreciate it much more. And yes, I was probably very lucky to have had the other supporting network around me. But as we want to grow the numbers, it's sometimes difficult to spread the kind of the networks because there's not that many mentors. I think I was very lucky. I came at the right time there were it was literally a handful of people. It wasn't that many, but they were just devoted to the sport. But as the new generation comes through, we need to find a different way to expand that, because the handful of people cannot progress that in the same way. And actually, setting up the online calls is hugely important, especially post-pandemic, where we are sort of looking for that reach, and people might be scattered around the UK and in England, and it would not be physically possible for us to meet. And often or not, we get paired up with junior referees to pass on the knowledge and experience. But this is not always possible due to the distance. And so for somebody to have access, say, from the north part of England to south part of England, and both exchange the ideas, experiences, is extremely crucial, because they will have never chance to kind of referee together or experience it. And in some areas, we don't even have enough female referees for 2 referees, female, to actually be together in the same game. And that's, again, you can't really experience that. So for us is to really bring a wider network together. And therefore, yes, definitely what I've had then and what is now is feeling like we are spreading that network wider. which allows more people to be interested in joining not just the HerCall, but also the sport in general, and then passing on the knowledge to their clubs that something like this exists. So it almost gives it as that sort of initiative to have a wider outcome. And that was really very much possible by the internet and the online side of things, because otherwise it will be physically not always possible to do so.
And I think like one aspect is to kind of normalize that, well, women can be referees as well. It's not just for men. And I think like the more sort of visibility, like the young women or girls they see, they will be like, well, actually, I can be that too.
And it's a great story, actually, because recently we went to referee in a female only tournament in a school environment. It was sort of the sort of ages between the 12 and 17, 12 and 18. And it was in London, and it was the first time that we had 7 female referees coming to referee in a female tournament for the school. And this was fantastic because it was greatly put together. And at the end of the 2 day, it was a 2 day full tournament. It was amazing because the girls came to us and said, we're inspired to be refereeing, not just the players. And that's what it's about, is to see people in different roles, to be able to say there are different pathways in sport. And it's not always just about being the best in one pathway. You can actually choose different pathways to develop yourself. And refereeing doesn't have to be the one that people are scared of. It's about, what your interests are. You could be young, but you could be interested in refereeing from very, very young age, and that's fantastic. So I think that gives it that opportunity to expose the up-and-coming referees as well, and up-and-coming new generations to sport. And we do try to, enhance the grassroots where we can. So supporting the young referees that are coming through, whether, as I mentioned, through the schools or through the universities, because those are the starting points where the people come across the sport as well a little bit more, because it's not an obvious sport in a curriculum. It's not one of the key sports in curriculum. So only the schools that either focus on that, or international schools that may have that, or they have people that love their sport working in the schools and they just have it as an extra curriculum. So it's very much driven by those people that are passionate about that particular sport. You probably might find the same in boxing. If you're passionate about the sport, you'll spread the word. So I think it's important to do that, to really go wider, and that allows to do so. And the second part, actually, I wanted to touch on is the growing confidence. I think women somehow, and maybe I myself when I was growing into the role as well, we just don't possess that confidence perhaps that male do. Our male counterparts have got this alpha male status. It's very much naturally embedded in the characters, right? And often women are more sort of nurturing and supporting and caring. And when they come into very difficult environment where it's a very strong male oriented game, very, very heavy game, then they may struggle with confidence. It's a natural thing. So as part of the development, what we also try to talk about is the confidence building, because the person may know exactly what the rules are, how to apply them, what to do with things technically, but the confidence is the one that holds them back from the development and progression. So we also talk about that. We talk about the natural things of confidence growing and feeling that they are there, they deserve to be there, that they can perform to that level, and why not?
That is so important, isn't it? Just to have the belief that, well, yes, we do belong to this space as well as the male counterpart, like you said.
And because we're there on merit, we're not there on basis of whether you're male or female. I know female referees that are better. Some of them are even better than male referees. So it's got nothing to do with really whether we're female or male. It should be based on merit. And if you're good enough and if you're good and consistent, then your progression should be there. But not everybody sees everybody's individual progression, especially if you're a spectator or a different person. But for those that put the hours and put the effort and get the reflection and self-reflection and development, you do see the rewards. And that's what we're aiming for, whether it's a HerCall or generally focusing on refereeing in sport.
That's great. So what would you say for your refereeing journey so far, your highs and your lows in your career?
In my career, highs. Okay, so I think there's quite a few highs because I love pushing boundaries and I love to kind of explore unknown and new things. So for me, even the fact that I was sort of going through my pathway very quickly was very high, because I was at the right time, right place with the right people who believed in me who perhaps saw potential. And that was sort of a high for me at that younger stage. Then the kind of the change came at when I was actually selected for London 2012 as a supporting technical official. And that was sort of a 3-4 years of hard work. And there was about 200 applicants, and then we were about 20-30 people at the end of the day who participated in the London 2012 Olympics in volleyball. And for me, that was eye-opening. It was absolutely unbelievable to be part of the whole, Olympic Games for sort of nearly 3 weeks. We were in the bubble of excitement, learning, growth, and we saw it from the eyes of the kind of the proficiency of the referee or how they did it. And we were part of that technical sort of support team there, and looking at the aspiring to be, to referees like they were there before us. And I was very lucky to be assigned as a supported technical official for the first time that two female international referees refereed a very high level finals match. I think it was a bronze medal, which normally didn't happen. This was one of the first time that they actually put two female referees in a match that would normally be female male or male dominated. So that was kind of a big deal for me at that time to see aspiring women as well on an international scene. And then getting to my international status, that was another high for me, because going to South America and seeing different caliber, and we know Brazil and Argentina are the top of the world in terms of volleyball, and to see referees of that caliber on my course and being part of that group for a little while was unbelievable. That was totally different. Federations, a totally different way of approaching it, and that was very early days. And then over the years, being part of different level games on international scene, whether you're talking European Championships or anything similar, it's fantastic because you get to experience some amazing camaraderie, amazing people, amazing athletes. And it is like a big international family now. We don't only have just sort of English family, we also have an international volleyball family, and people you meet along the way. Fantastic. So for me, that's a highlight. It's not just a one match, it's about the journey and experiencing it at different stages, and experiencing kind of the best bits out of it, of course, of the achievements. And of course, within England, refereeing all the cup finals over the number of years, female or male. This year, I'm also being nominated to referee the cup final of England, and also do the gold medal match in the top 4 teams in the country. So you do get these privileges, and I'm really humbled that I've been selected to do so. So I'm very happy about that. I guess the lows are sort of the struggles that you have over the years, really, is things that, don't go your way often, that you have difficult matches and you come back and you're more reflective. Things that, you kind of make one small mistake that may impact the whole match. And unfortunately, it's perceived that way as well, because it may be at a crucial point where something has happened and unfortunately it didn't go according to plan. And these things can happen. We are human after all. And these are the sort of a learning curves that, yes, you can call them lows, but it's more about taking on board these different things that shape you, who you are as a professional and as a person. So for me, lows are more learning curves and the ability to influence the decisions in a different way next time, because you learn from that experience, and that happens. I don't want to say all the time, but there's always going to be something that you take away from every match or every experience, and that could be perceived as a blip or as a low, because if it's been a really bad match, then that's not ideal. We always sort of try to thrive to have good matches, but these things are not always given. The situations are very, very different. But I think the lows are more for me as things that are progressive to learning, and there could be an unusual exchange with a coach, or a very unusual exchange with a player, and then you reflect back on it and you say, well, I could have handled that differently. But these are all learning curves. I wouldn't call them setbacks, I'd probably call them learning curves, and these are probably the lows.
Thank you for that. I think that's really positive, isn't it? It's something, I mean, like you said, we're all human, we make mistakes, and then the more important thing is that how we learn from those mistakes, and then we actually grow from it. Do you have any method that you use to pick yourself up? Say if you made a little mistake, you're beating yourself up a little bit, but how do you pick yourself up after that?
That's a really good question. Again, question I get asked a lot, because everybody wants to know those nuggets, right? From experience, or how do you become more resilient now to these things, because that's about that. I think I've learned over the years not to take it personally as much as I used to, because when I was younger, a referee, I would go, I would beat myself a lot more about it. You were spot on. But as you grow into sort of more confidence levels, you start to calm your mindset down a little bit about it. And I sometimes joke with the younger referees about it because you can see it in their face when they've made a mistake, or it's projected through different sort of behavior, what they may do. And if you know them, you can spot that. It's more about learning to compose it and compartmentalize it. And there are things that you can deal with straight away, and there are things that you might want to analyze later on, but they're actually not going to help your game. So it's more about allowing yourself to say, okay, the mistake has been made. Let me just put that aside. I'm going to digest that a little bit deeper after the game and analyze it myself. But at this moment in time, we have to focus on the next one. So allowing yourself to do so is very important, and not to dwell on things. I know it's easier said than done, but actually just take, okay, acknowledging the mistake and say, okay, I've made a mistake. Let's focus on the next point or next situation, and then analyzing it afterwards. And also taking a bit of a breather. It's the calmness within you. So you breathe in and out, and you calm yourself down, even if it was a difficult situation. And resetting is very important. Otherwise, that emotion can drain you for the rest of the period of time that you're doing the match. So it's actually being able to try to bring the positivity back and allowing yourself that you've acknowledged that you made a mistake, but to move on to the next point rather than, I think beating yourself up is more about not allowing to move on from that mistake. And I think this is probably the most important thing, is to not be afraid of that, is to kind of go, yep, it's on the list to discuss later on. It's on the list that I need to improve. But at the moment, let's focus on the next point. And whether that takes a breather or two, whether it takes a sip of water, whether it takes to change the situation and the mindset a little bit, and then you continue with your performance. Otherwise, it will affect you. I think this is probably the big learning curve I've had over the years. And I think the second thing is probably believing that you can, because a lot of people don't believe themselves. We get up on a stand, or we lower as a referee on the floor. Whatever capacity you are in, people doubt themselves. I think that doubt can actually hinder your performance. So believing that you can and that you can overcome this, and having that positive mantra in your head, takes you away from that negativity, negative point that may have, or situation that may have happened. So going, okay, yes, I can move on. I'm going to focus now. And reinforcing that, almost like a positive gratitude mantra that you can kind of go, yeah, I can do this. Let's go. Let's move on. Let's kind of reshape that mindset in a very short space of time. And that's the trick. Otherwise, your mindset will stay negative and you'll make more mistakes, which is probably more worse and detrimental. So it's that focus and that allowing yourself to move from that situation, detach yourself from that situation as well, and not to beat yourself up about it. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Oh, thank you so much. Just so much wisdom in all the things you said. Honestly, in refereeing, like any game, any contest, there's no same situation every time, right? There's always something different. But I agree. And that is really, really helpful. Just know that you can handle it no matter what happens. So, yeah.
Because you wouldn't be there if somebody hasn't thought that you're good enough to be there. That's the first acknowledgement we have to make, is you are at that situation, whether it's a high profile or different profile, because people around you that appointed you to that situation believe that you can do this. So therefore, why would you not believe yourself to do this if others are believing that you can do this? And that's that first step, right? Is acknowledging that you are there because you are there on merit, and that you can absolutely do this situation and be part of that and actually enjoy it rather than doubt yourself through the game. That's one big step. And if you feel that you need to get into the zone, then before that situation, let's say that you are getting into your uniform or whatever your preparations are, that could be part of your preparations, is to get into that zone and mindset where you kind of go, okay, yes, I can do this. Ready in my uniform, I'm now taking on the position of that person, and therefore I'm here to deliver that. And therefore, no matter what's happening at home or outside or anything else, now at that moment in time, I am a referee or a coach or whoever I am, and I'm just going to do and perform my duty impartially, fairly, and step into that zone. And I'm pretty sure if you were to look into NLP techniques, anchoring and sort of areas that you can do that, you can get into that zone mindset as well. That might help a bit more. If you're not familiar, then have a look at it as well.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you. So what's in the future for you? say, looking forward to 12 months or 5 years, 10 years? What's next for you?
So what's next for me? It's a really good question because I think nationally I'm at the top where I can be. So for me, it's more about keep the consistency and keeping the good work over the years and learning through other people's, development and my own. You never stop learning because the situations are going to be different. So for me, it's just continuing the consistency levels and keep it on top. And then giving a lot more back, of course, to develop the next generation. I think for me, that will be the next focus because I got to live my dreams and enjoy that in the process. So I want to make sure that other people can experience it too. For international level, again, I feel I've got maybe about 6 years left internationally because we do have a cutoff point in terms of years. So I will probably, remain on the international scene for another 6 years and then pass the baton on to somebody up and coming. And we do have in development, people that will be coming and, coming through that path again for international status, which is fantastic to see. And for me, so we'll be more sort of focused on giving mentorship and support to those people coming through to the international level as well. And continue a good work internationally. Representing England is important to me because again, it's the whole experience being, appointed internationally and, England believing that I can still go out there and deliver that performance is very important. So to have a support of Volleyball England is hugely, hugely important to me and to represent well and to be able to continue the games that I'm appointed to, whether it's female or male or tournaments or different countries against countries divisions. It's more about delivering that good, consistent work. And I'm extremely grateful and sort of humbled and honored to receive all of these things. So for me, I'm in a stage of my life where, whatever I'm appointed to, I'm extremely happy and humbled about it because I have received what I wanted and I wanted to achieve. So for me, it's more continuation of these things. And of course, if there are more pinnacles to come, that would be fantastic. And I would be very much open. But for me, it's also enjoying what I have. And I enjoy every game. And whether I referee local games, in London, or whether I go national games somewhere else, or whether I go international games, for me, it's a game. It's not, I don't differentiate. Whether you are passionate here in London or whether you're passionate abroad, you're still passionate about the same sport. So for me, it's to have a consistency between all types of games and being able to do it well.
That's wonderful. Will we possibly see you at the Olympics, maybe?
I very much doubt so. I'm a little bit past the age, unfortunately. I wish I could do something like this. But, I see colleagues of mine internationally who are younger than me and obviously gone on a different pathway internationally. And I'm really happy with everything and everybody because when I meet them and they see, progression and I see progression, I think for me that's fantastic to see. So I'm just enjoying what comes really.
That's really gracious. Thank you. So what is one piece of advice you would give to any young woman or girl sitting on the fence, whether they want to go into officiating or refereeing? What would you say to them?
I'd probably say I'm going to say three little things, three little words. I'm going to say learn and grow. So learning is important. Lead by example, and inspire others, because that is going to have a big impact in refereeing, coaching, and in sport in general. So if they are sitting on a fence and they've never done refereeing, you've got nothing to lose. You might just enjoy it and you might surprise yourself. You might enjoy it as well. And it doesn't require a rocket science to be able to try it. So I say give it a go, give it a try, learn, lead, and inspire.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Just to finish off, is there anything that you feel quite important that I haven't asked you, I haven't touched on that you would like to add?
Not necessarily. The only thing I'll say is that the last bit of advice is continue the facilitation. We're not there to police or, or stop the game. It's that facilitation that should remain a priority. And somebody said to me once years ago, and it's so true, is use a whistle as a tool, not as a weapon. So in our game, that's the echo that I would like to pass on, is use that to facilitate the sport, not to kill it.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much, Katarina. I feel like Volleyball England and all the female referees and officials in volleyball are so lucky to have you as their mentor. It's such a pleasure talking to you. Like I said earlier, there's so much wisdom in your advice and all the things that you share. So I really appreciate your time and then really appreciate all the things that you share with us.
Thank you so much, Amy, and thank you for your invitation. It was an absolute pleasure to share that with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you do, please comment, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.